Hey guys, CryptoDad here again, and today I'm going to show you how to access the dark web using the Tor browser. Now the first thing you might say is, hey CryptoDad, I thought the dark web was only used by criminals. Well, that's a misconception. Yes, there is a large portion of the dark web devoted to illicit materials and illicit activities. But there's also a portion of the dark web where people go to maintain their privacy and anonymity and browse the web free of surveillance and censorship. And that's what we're after today. Now, there are many ways to do this. I'm going to show you a way that I consider to be one of the best ways of browsing the dark web while maintaining your privacy and anonymity. So what I'm going to show you is a secondary system where we've loaded Debian Linux, and then on top of that, we'll install Virtualbox, and within the Virtualbox, we'll run a copy of Whonix. And that is an operating system that uses the Tor network by default. I know it sounds a little complicated, but I'm going to guide you through every step of the way. Now, you might be wondering when I say secondary system, what am I talking about? When I say secondary system, I mean that we're basically going to have a system separate from our everyday computer activities. So you might be thinking, how can I afford a secondary system? Well, the secondary system doesn't necessarily have to be a completely separate computer. It can be. You can get cheap computers in lots of places. You can get an open box laptop at a big box tech store. You can buy a used PC desktop on Craigslist or something like that. But you can also use a secondary hard drive, and hard drives are relatively inexpensive now. So all you really need is a hard drive, and you can install that in your desktop and create a dual boot system, and you can boot into your secondary system using that method. You can even remove that hard drive and keep it in a safe place when you're not using it so that there's no trace of what you're doing on your computer. So why are we using a secondary system? Because our normal computer has so many components that are tied to our identity. Let's face it, guys, every time we pick up our phone or jump on our computer, we're being tracked and traced. So where we are, what kind of computer we're using, what kind of websites we're browsing, all of that stuff is fair game for the industrial surveillance complex. So I'm going to show you how to set up a secondary system that doesn't leak as much of our personal activity. And that's why we want to keep it separate from our normal computer. And of course, we want to continue to use our regular machine and do those kind of activities that make our life convenient, like paying our bills, checking our email, going on social media, all of that stuff that we do that's pretty much public. We want to continue to do that. So we don't want to corrupt that machine with our dark web stuff. And we don't want to corrupt our dark web system with all of our personal stuff that can be tied to our identity. So that's why we're going to use a secondary system. So why don't we jump in? I'll show you how to get everything set up and teach you how to use the dark web safely and securely. So now we're here at the base system. I'm not going to go into a full explanation of how to install Debian Linux. It's pretty straightforward. I will mention that at one point during the process, it does ask you to enter your name. Of course, you don't want to enter your name. Put something generic like user or whatever you want. Just don't put in your name. The idea here is that we want to keep our interaction on this system to a minimum. So don't check your email or start browsing the web or watching YouTube videos. That's the kind of thing that will tie your behavior to this system. So there are a few things that we're going to need to do kind of in the ClearNet before we get started, and that's unavoidable. We need to get some tools installed, but like I said, we want to keep that personal behavior to a bare minimum while we're doing this. All right. So as I said, this is a base system. One of the things that I like to do is go down here to the application square, and we're going to use the terminal quite a bit. So we can just right click that and pin it to our dash so we have easy access to that. So I'm using the GNOME graphic user interface, and GNOME installs Firefox by default. So we'll use Firefox as our web browser. So the first thing we'll want to do is get a VPN set up. Why do we want to do that first? If we simply start running Tor on this computer, we are connected to our ISP, and our ISP is going to know that we're using the Tor browser. Now, if we install a VPN and start running the VPN, they're going to know we're using a VPN, but they won't be able to read any of the traffic. So I would prefer that my ISP know I'm running a VPN than them knowing I'm running the Tor browser. We want to try to obfuscate our behavior as best as possible. And it's fairly common for people to use VPNs. So let's do that first. Now, we also want to be careful about the VPN that we choose. We don't want to use a mainstream VPN that takes our credit card information. Number one, they can be subpoenaed by law enforcement pretty easily. And number two, if that happens, all of our personal information will be in there with our payment method. We want to try to get connected with a VPN with as little personal information as possible. And this site here, privacytools.io, has a lot of really good tools for choosing a decent VPN. So we'll go to the VPN tools. So Nord is pretty high on the list, and I use Nord on my Windows machine when I need a VPN. And they will accept Bitcoin. And that's okay. So you could use Nord and just pay with Bitcoin, and you're not really required to put in any personal information. However, they do want your email, and they're going to use that for verification. So if you're getting signed up, you may not have your credit card information if you use Bitcoin, but you will have your email, and emails can easily be tied to your identity. So there are a couple of other ones here. I like Mullvad. It's pretty cool. They will accept Monero, which is a privacy-based coin. So that's a really good method of payment which isn't tied to your identity in any way. Even Bitcoin conceivably could be traced back to your identity if you're using it in other places. Like if the Bitcoin that you bought on Coinbase is in your wallet, and then you use the wallet to make your payment from Bitcoin, even though this system isn't getting any personal information, that Bitcoin can be tracked and traced. So I'm going to choose this one that accepts Monero. As I mentioned, there are a lot of them out there, and they have different methods of payment. You can use Bitcoin. There are ways of obfuscating your Bitcoin transactions, but I'm going to go with the Monero here. So we're on the site here, and notice that they have this check for leaks up here. And if we click that, you can see we're leaking a lot of information just by being on the internet and sitting in front of our computer. So let's go ahead and start to shore up some of those leaks. We'll click Get Started here. We're going to generate a random account number. Now that we have this account number, we should save this. We can copy this into our clipboard, maybe save it in a document so we don't lose it. And now that we've generated a random account, let's hit Add Time to our account. And these are our methods of payment, right? And if we use Monero, of course there's no refunds for Monero. Create a one-time payment address, and you can pay per month or per year, and we'll basically send a little bit of Monero to this address. Now I have some videos on how to use the Monero wallet, so I'm not going to go into that for you right now. Suffice it to say that the best way to get a VPN set up with as little personal information as possible is to use Mullvad and pay with Monero. As I mentioned, there are other suggestions here, and you can do those as well. You don't have to go full tilt. I'm just giving you what I consider to be the best way to shield your identity with the VPN, right? So the Mullvad is in Sweden, which is a very high privacy thing they have very strong privacy laws, so it's very difficult for anyone to subpoena their logs, and even if they did, there wouldn't be any personal information tied to your account. All right, so the funding came in to my account, and as you can see, I'm paid up for 2 months. Now I'm just going to copy the account number into my clipboard here. Let's go over to downloads, and we'll download the Debian package, which also works on Ubuntu. Now there are verification tools that you can use when you download these. I'm going to go ahead and skip that in the interest of time here, but I would highly recommend that you verify these downloads to make sure that they are indeed the packages signed by the developers. All right, now this is a deb package, so we don't really want to expand it. We can right-click on it, and instead of the archive manager, use Open With and choose the software install. So we'll click Open here. Once we get to this point, we'll choose Install. We'll have to enter our password there. All right, and then we'll have that here. And we can even go down once again to our app menu and pin this. You want to have that one pinned. All right, we can just open it from here. And you remember that I had copied that account number into my clipboard. This is the account number that we established that I paid on. So we'll go ahead and get ourselves logged in, and here we go. We can check here. It'll tell us how much time is left on it. I'll just go ahead and connect to Sweden. You have a lot of choices here, a lot of countries that you can connect to. I'll just go ahead and use the default. And now we have a secure encrypted VPN connection to a private server. So now my ISP can see that I'm on a VPN, but they can't read the traffic going back and forth. And any websites that I go to will not see my IP address. They'll see the IP address of the server here. So now that we've got that done, let's get all of those tools downloaded. Okay, and of course your alerts will be in a different language. You can use Google Translate, but I believe this is just accept cookies. All right, so we're on Whonix here. We want to get this downloaded, and we want to use the Virtualbox version of Whonix. So we'll click that. So they'll give us the steps here. We're going to download that image first, and then we'll install Virtualbox so that we can run the image. As I mentioned, there are verification tools available for you to use to verify these downloads. I'll just go ahead and download that. Now it's going to take quite a bit because it is pretty large. So depending on your internet connection, this may take a while. All right, and once we've got that downloaded, we can check it out over here. It's an image file, and it'll be in your downloads folder. Now that we've got the Whonix image downloaded, we can install Virtualbox on our system. So we want the Linux version. And as you can see, there are a couple of ways to download this. We can head over to the Virtualbox website, and they'll give us some specific instructions here. And I like to do this because once you have got this set up, you'll be able to update your Oracle Virtualbox simply by doing your Debian update. Let's jump into the command window that I was telling you about. I like to become the super user to edit my sources list. Makes it easier to modify it because it is a system file. All right, and here it is. Basically, we just need to add this line here, which we can highlight, copy, and then go back over here. Doesn't really matter where we add it. I like to use it, put it at the end here, and you can right click and paste. And the only thing you basically need to do to this line is change it to your distribution. As you can see, I'm using Bookworm. So we'll just go back here. And basically we're done. Basically we just need to do this so that when we run app update, it will it can download from this repository. All right, and so now that we're done, we'll do a Control X and tell it to save by hitting yes. And we're done with that. And we can exit the super user. And we can download the keys and add them to our distribution, or we can do both in one fell swoop. It's probably the easiest one. Copy that into our clipboard. Go back over here. Paste that in. And that's the command. It's going to download the signature and add it to our list of keys so that it will be verified when we run the install and update. All right, we can double check to make sure that key got put in the right place in our files. If we go up here to our system, you can see the path right here. USR share keyrings. Okay, there's our keyrings folder, and there you can see that the key has been added. So we're good on that. All right, so basically we just needed to add that line to our sources for the repository, and then put the key in the right place so that it will be verified when we run the update. So now all we have to do is run our app update and install Virtualbox. You'll notice that it downloaded from Virtualbox, and then we can go ahead and install it. And I believe the latest version now is version 7.1. Nope. Okay. Must be version 7.0. Okay, there it is. All right, so we had to do a little bit of finagling to get it set up. But from now on, whenever we run an app update, it's going to update Virtualbox if it needs to be updated. All right. And once we've done that, also, when we go over here to our app list, you can see we've got Virtualbox. It makes it really easy. We'll pin that to our dash. So now we've got everything we need to launch our Virtualbox and our Whonix, right? So let's go over here. We'll click our Virtualbox. All right, we want to import that Whonix image, so we'll click Import, and then it's going to be in the Downloads folder, which is pretty easy to find. There it is. And we'll just click Open here. And then we'll click Next and Finish. We can leave it at the default settings. We'll have to agree to the terms here. All right, and so now we're ready to go. Whonix consists of two parts. The first part is the gateway, which is kind of the infrastructure. So we want to power that up first. All right, so we can maximize this. First thing we'll do is we have to agree to this, understood, and do that twice. Now we can connect directly, or we can do configure. I like to do configure and use a bridge. This would be if you're in a country that generally censors Tor. It's kind of a way around it. And use the OBFS4. We'll hit next. I don't need to use a proxy. Now it's going to take it a couple of minutes to actually establish a connection to the Tor network. It usually takes longer on the first try, and then after that it doesn't take quite as long whenever you relaunch it. All right, now that it's finished, there is a command that you can run that will update the Debian system that is built into Whonix. So, and that's always a good thing to do first. We'll launch our terminal and let it run its update. Notice that it uses Tor to download the updates. All right, so once you've got the Whonix gateway running and you've got it completely updated, it can just sit in the background. Like I mentioned, it's the infrastructure component of the Whonix operating system, and now we want to power on the workstation component, which is where we're going to do all of our real work. And just like we did with the gateway, we'll agree to these terms twice, and after it's made its connection, we'll go ahead and copy this command into our clipboard, launch our terminal, just paste it in there and let it run the update so that the Debian system is fully up to date. All right, once we've got both virtual machines running, as you can see here in the Oracle Manager, we've got both virtual machines up and running, and both of them are updated. Now we can browse the web safely and securely with the underlying foundation of both of these being the Tor network, right? Now, within the Virtualbox workstation, we can run the Tor browser. It's up here. We also, this button here gives us access to all of the applications. So this is quite a rich system. There are quite a few helpful applications that you can run here to help improve your privacy and manage what you're doing. Now, this is a persistent system. So if you create documents in this workstation and save them in your file system, they will be there when you relaunch it. So let's go ahead and launch the Tor browser. I can scale this one up so it's a little easier for you to see. So we've got our Tor browser launched and we're ready to browse the web. Let's do an IP check to see what happens. We're configured for Tor. We've got an obfuscated IP address and we're ready to go. And there's a lot of tools and forums here that they've given us links for. Now we can browse ClearNet sites if we want to, but since it's a ClearNet site, it wouldn't be encrypted. We would be, but they wouldn't, right? So basically the goal when you're browsing the dark web is to use onion sites that end in the word onion because they're encrypted. So you'll have encryption on both ends and a fully safe and secure connection. Right, so let's look for a hidden wiki. We'll just type that in. The default search engine is DuckDuckGo. All right, and here's an ORG site. All right, and notice that they're providing us with a bunch of onion links. All right, now one of those is an actual hidden wiki that is an onion site. So as you can see, this one ends in .org, but if we click this link, this will take us to a site that ends in .onion, and so now we've got two-way encryption on both ends. And if you want to, you can just drag this into your bookmarks so you can always get to it. And feel free to start exploring the dark web. As I mentioned, there's quite a bit of illicit activity available. But there's also a lot of wealth of other types of content like forums, discussion groups, and a lot of information that you wouldn't normally find on the ClearNet that is free of censorship and tracking. So, and this is just one hidden wiki. There's a lot of different ones out there. The dark web is called an onion because there are a lot of layers, and so a lot of links that'll lead you to places that will lead you to other places. So keep that in mind as you explore. And this, I feel, is probably your best and secure way to set up. Now, when you're done with this, you can simply exit, power off the machine. You don't need to save the state of the machine. You can simply relaunch the web browser when you start over again, and you'll still have your any links that you saved and any documents that you created will still be there. So it's just better to power off the machine, let it shut completely down, and then do the same thing with your gateway. And then you can shut down your Virtualbox and shut down your system. Right? You don't necessarily have to disconnect when you shut down your system. It will automatically disconnect when you shut down. But every time you boot up, as I mentioned, try not to interact at all with this base system, right? You don't want to use this base system to browse the web or check your email or do anything like that. You'll just come in, launch this, go ahead, connect your VPN first thing, And then from there, go ahead and launch your Virtualbox and launch your gateway and then your workstation. And then you can start interacting, browsing the web, and doing whatever else interests you. And make sure that you keep everything up to date. You'll want to go into your terminal and do apt updates periodically. You want to do apt update and apt upgrade to keep your system up to date, and do the same thing whenever you launch your Whonixes, because each of these is basically a self-contained system. You'll want to run the apt updates in your Linux on both of these systems to make sure they're completely up to date. So that's it. If you have any questions about anything I did, please throw them up in the comments and I'll do my best to get them answered. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel, I would appreciate it. When you subscribe, there's a little bell that you can click that will allow you to be alerted whenever I post new content. Once again, thanks for joining me and hope to see you again soon.